Hi, my name is Soile, and you're listening to Heart to Heartland, a fan podcast from a fan perspective. Okay, let's see if I still know how to do this. Welcome back to the podcast. I didn't expect that it would take this long for me to come back. In fact, I had plans to do an episode like a week after the last episode, but then life happened. As it usually does. And if you're watching this, there's no visual version. And I think part of the reason why I've been kind of pushing this forward is because I feel like I've made it sort of too laborious, if that is even a word, for myself with the visual thing. I know some of you enjoy it, and I do too to some extent, but then it creates more work for me. So I'm hoping that by taking away that side, I'm able to edit this episode quicker and able to maybe give you more episodes because it's not as much work as it used to be. So I'm hoping that for those who love the visual version, will be able to enjoy the episodes nonetheless because yeah, I just feel like this is something that needed to change in order for me to be able to continue. But anyways, what have you guys been up to? Well, I know for one, Heartland has made the announcement of when the new episodes will start airing. The season 18 premiere is on Sunday, September 29th, on CBC Gem. And get this, the season 18 premiere podcast will follow on CBC TV on Sunday, October 6th. That's 7 p.m. And this is something different and something interesting, actually. Maybe we'll talk more about that next week when we officially launch the next step for Heartland. Looking forward to the new season and all it brings. As I'm recording this, they have not released a trailer yet, no promo pics, and there is not really any new material to obsess over. So it will be fascinating to see what the feel of the season will be. But next week will be all about that. To ease kind of in to the groove of things, I was thinking doing like this sort of little podcast before we actually get into season 18 episodes and all that, because I've been rewatching some of the previous seasons during the summer because of another podcast episode that I'm hopefully doing somewhere in the future. And it has been interesting to watch them because I've seen all the seasons up until season 17 at this point. So going back to, I think I started maybe season 9 or 10. And I went up to season 14. I'm still in the middle of rewatching some of the episodes, but anyways, the point is, it's been interesting because I started to see this pattern that I feel like the writers have sort of been trying to push for a while now. And I feel like with season 17, it finally kind of came into fruition. And I was thinking, has anyone else thought of this before? Probably someone. But I was wondering if it was kind of clear to everyone else, and I just sort of only got that now. So I asked you on Instagram if maybe you had noticed this as well, because it's always fascinating to hear other people's perspective of some of the things that have happened in the past, because then you can look at them from a different point of view than when they were actually happening. So I asked you, this is actually what I wrote to the Instagram post. Just finished my rewatch of season 13 and looking at that season's story arc of Mitch through the lens of season 16 and 17, It made me think I might want to talk about this in a podcast episode, but maybe you have some thoughts as well. Do you think the pairing of Nathan and Amy is sort of like a combo of Lou and Mitch, season 13, and Amy and Finn, season 16? What I mean is that there are similar elements of mixing love, business, and family in them. What are your thoughts? Do you see the similarities between these pairings and situations? To which H.L. Horses said, the one thing I have in common with all these pairings is that I love all of them. I think there's a typo in this, so I'm just going to read it as it's written. I'm interested to hear the similarities you'd we with Mitch and Lou, maybe see with Mitch and Lou, as I see more of a resemblance with Amy and Finn pairing. And then Sharon said, they're not the same as Lou and Mitch, maybe more like Finn and Amy. Lou and Mitch were both at crossroads, whereas Amy isn't at crossroads per se, more at a time being ready to move forward. Nathan is from her world, ranch, horses. They have a lot in common, and she will help him out of his hurt. I feel that Lou and Mitch were more about passion, attraction, but neither were in the right frame of mind to be in a lasting relationship. I see Nathan as a gentle person who was hurt badly, and he hasn't been able to deal with that yet. Hopefully, he is a nice guy and not out to ruin Heartland Ranch. Also hope that Caleb doesn't behave like he did in season 2. Caleb jumps into relationships quickly, but in my opinion, he can't put his feelings for Amy ahead of his son. That wouldn't be Caleb. So to kind of take you back a little bit, back in season 13, we had Lou and Mitch together, and Mitch was working with Jack and Tim for the Heartland beef, and there was Garland Foods and all these talk about expanding the herd, and there were a lot of opinions going around between the three men. Then we have season 16 with Finn, who is the son of an old enemy of sorts of Jack's, and there's a history there, which I don't know how it was planned to be revealed, because due to Robert's passing, the story got changed a bit. There was that whole Romeo and Juliet element, and Jack having to deal with Finn's father, Al. And then in season 17, we have Nathan, who is the son of Nathan Sr., who is also in a direct competition with Heartland Beef. And that creates these tensions between the Bartlett Fleming family and the Price family. I was just looking back at season 13. We have a situation where Tim and Mitch want to expand the herd, but Jack says, no, I don't want to do that because we can't really, focus well on what we're doing with the cattle, because we would have to buy them from somewhere else, and that creates kind of possibly problematic situations, and he wants to keep the beef as close to the family as possible. And then Mitch is kind of like, okay, fine, whatever. We can't just walk over Jack's decision, so we're not going to do that. And then things sort of shift. And then Mitch gets this idea that he really wants to be more brave about the decisions that he makes, because Tim puts this thought into his head that he's not really a good match for Lou, who is very ambitious and successful and all that. So Mitch kind of decides that even though Jack doesn't want to expand the herd, he will buy the herd and kind of take charge of that at his ranch, Aspen Grove, which he bought with Lou. And then eventually Tim gets mad at him for being a traitor, and Jack is more like, okay, we need to be civil about this because Lou is in a relationship with Mitch and he considers Mitch family. And yeah, so there's sort of bad blood, but then we have the romance between Lou and Mitch that sort of plays in the background and kind of creates some rules for how they're able to behave around each other and all that. And then we have season 14 happen when COVID hit and Kevin wasn't able to jump from one production to another because of the risks involved. So he had to kind of take a step back. And so we have Mitch at the Aspen Grove for most of the season. We have Lou and Mitch engaged. And then at the end of the season, they break up. And I think it's mostly due to Kevin having to choose between doing Heartland and then When It Calls to Heart. And as we know now, he is the leading man, so he's doing great with that show. And Lou was left to pick up the pieces, and there's a whole new chapter with Peter happening. But anyway, so there's an element of Romeo and Juliet in that sense, mixed with the beef business and different opinions and having all these like tensions between different members of the family. And then in season 15, we are introduced to Finn. And then later on in season 16, he is in more episodes, and it's clear that there's something going on between him and Amy, and there's a kiss and all that kind of stuff. And I think they would have continued building that story, that romance, had Robert not passed away. And it would have been interesting to see how that would have been laid out, because again, there was family history between the two families, and there was a romance in the middle of it. And Jack was not pleased about that, and he was kind of mad at Amy for meddling with the enemy, so to speak. And then we find out later on in the season that Al, Finn's father, was really close to Jack's dad, and there's a whole fishing capping thing and all that kind of stuff. So there's some elements, but I would be curious to know if there were more similar elements happening as there was with what they were planning for Mitch. And then in season 17, we have Nathan, sort of similar situation again. We have two families that are beefing through beef. See what I did there? And then we have a romance in the middle. So it seems like there's a pattern that they've been wanting to push forward, but due to different circumstances, they've had to sort of abandon those situations because Mitch left, or Kevin left, more like, and then Finn left because Robert died, and they had to change the story. And then now in season 17, I feel like they're like, okay, let's finally do this, because it seems like they've really fixated on that whole idea that this needs to happen in some form or shape. So we have similar patterns, but this time we also have both Lou and Amy involved with the so-called Romeo. Lou, I think, because we saw the episode where Nathan sort of helped her when she ran away from home. We have her as a character to win the audience over in a way, because the Price family is this big bad. And then we have the budding romance between Amy and Nathan that is slowly, hopefully, being built up in next season as well. And then we have Jack, who is more frustrated with the Price family, I would say. I mean, Tim is too as well, but I feel like for Jack, it's somehow more personal, and I feel like Jack will not be satisfied with seeing Amy sort of spending time with the enemy, so to speak. But yeah, I feel like this is sort of been something that they've been building up basically for, I would say, 4 seasons with different characters but similar elements. And I didn't really connect the dots before going back because I didn't like the way season 13 ended for Mitch's character. I felt like the storyline was not good for his character. I understand his motivations and all that, but I felt like they did him dirty, and it was hard to watch how Jack and Tim were really hard on him, because at the same time, Jack especially thought of him like a family. But yeah, and I think it was also hard to watch when Jack was so furious with Amy spending time with Finn because of his own issues with his family and all that. I didn't like that either. So I'm hoping that once this story arc is sort of established with Nathan's character and developed to some direction, that it doesn't get as nasty as that. That Jack and Tim maybe have hopefully learned something from dealing with those past situations, because it's starting to get kind of repetitive. There is tension, and sometimes, you know, it's the starting point for a lot of relationships, but it's like, come on, at some point you just gotta admit that you can't always be the grumpy guy, that you have to give some credit for other people choosing their company, like Amy choosing to be around Finn and now with Nathan. And then obviously it was a hard situation for Lou to be in as well with Mitch, especially because the relationship was getting more serious with them buying a place together and then eventually getting engaged. So I'm hoping that whatever the end result will be with Nathan and the Bartlett Fleming family, that it will be satisfactory. We don't have to watch this storyline for the fourth time. But yeah, that was sort of my thought process, and I'm wondering if maybe you see the similarities too. I don't know. This is just random, but I just wanted to get this out there before season 18 officially begins, because I feel like I don't want it to be tainted with something new before I've actually sort of processed this thought out loud. So there you have it. Not really that interesting necessarily to start this third part of the season, I guess. I had to get the conversation flowing somehow. So this is what I came up with. Speaking of the future, next week I'm gonna talk about, the upcoming season. And I've been thinking about if I should cover episodes like I've done in the past, because at some point I was kind of like, I don't know if I should do that, because it's a lot of work. But then I'm trying to see that if doing these sort of audio versions would help out with the workload, then maybe, because I do enjoy making those episodes. It's just the editing process that's heinous sometimes. I'm thinking maybe at this point, but it's still a maybe. It's not definitely, but I want to do them, and I will see if I can do them, because I do enjoy sharing your thoughts and sharing my thoughts as well, and just sort of creating this time locket of that moment when we see the episodes, and especially this year, because I asked from Michael Weinberg if this is for the whole season or if this is just for the premiere, kind of like exclusive thing to have the first episode air before TV premiere sort of thing. And he did say it's going to be weekly, so I'm guessing this will continue with rest of the season as well. So it would create this kind of interesting situation where I would have a recap episode of sorts airing on Saturday, and then the next day I would have a TV premiere happening for the episode. Or should I, this is actually something I also thought about, should I have the recap episodes air on Sundays instead? Sort of like after you watch the episode, you can come back and be like, oh, this is fresh off the press sort of thing, and listen to it and like, oh, I agree with that thought. Like, I don't know. What are your thoughts about that? Anyways, that was the whole episode to get things flowing again. I hope you enjoyed this little chat, or me rambling, or sharing my thoughts, or whatever. Because I have missed the podcast. just I don't know. It's just the doing it that's kind of the hardest part for me, which is like weird. But then posting it and seeing your reactions and how you've missed the podcast and how you like to share your thoughts and opinions and everything. It's just that part is the best part. But I can't have that before I actually do something before that. So yeah, I will see you next week and get your thoughts ready for season 18 because we're going to talk about everything that has been released up until that point as we get ready for new episodes. 10 new episodes coming. I'm both nervous and excited. I think seeing the trailer will definitely be kind of the point where I get a clear mindset about what to expect and how I will possibly feel about the season. But it's always good to see new episodes. There's always something good about them anyway. So yeah, looking forward to that. And until then, keep your noses clean and your powder dry, as they say. See you next week. Bye.